When was the last time you looked at yourself not in a mirror, but in silence? When was the last time you asked, "Who have I become, and who must I destroy to rise again?" Because the truth is, your greatest enemy isn't the world, it's the version of you still chained to comfort and fear. The old you, the one who waits for approval, who hides behind excuses, who settles for less, that version has to die. You can't rebuild your life on top of weakness. You must burn it down and rebuild from discipline, solitude, and truth. The Stoics understood this, that every rebirth demands a destruction. Every great transformation begins when you stop protecting your past and start preparing for your future. So I'll ask again, are you ready to let go of who you were and rebuild yourself when no one believes in you? Because this is not change, this is war. A quiet war against your old self. And when the smoke clears, only the strongest version of you will remain. 1. Collapse gracefully, don't fight the fall. Most people fear collapse as if it's the end, but the Stoics understood it as a sacred beginning. The old you cannot be destroyed gently. It must crumble. Every structure that no longer serves your growth must fall, no matter how much comfort it once gave you. When your plans shatter, when people leave, when you lose what you thought you needed, that is not chaos, it is clarity being born. The universe removes what weakens you before it rebuilds you into someone stronger. The wise don't panic when things fall apart, because they see destruction as part of design. Every ending carries the seed of rebirth hidden within it. To destroy the old you, you must allow yourself to break without resistance. Let the walls fall without screaming. Let the storm take what it must. The old you will fight to survive, it will cling to comfort, chase the familiar, and beg for certainty. But if you hold on to what is dying, you will never meet what is trying to be born. The Stoics taught that suffering doesn't come from pain itself, but from our refusal to accept it. When life tears away what you depended on, don't beg to get it back. Step aside and let the old identity burn. There is wisdom in surrender, not weakness, but understanding that some battles are not meant to be fought, only witnessed. When you stop resisting your fall, something incredible happens. Silence returns, and in that silence you begin to see what truly matters. The relationships that survive difficulty are real. The beliefs that stand firm under pressure are true. The strength that remains when everything else collapses, that's who you really are. Everything else was illusion, built from fear, ego, or dependence on others. Collapse reveals authenticity. It strips you of the unnecessary layers until only your essence remains. So, when everything around you starts falling apart, don't curse the collapse. Don't try to rebuild what the universe is asking you to release. Instead, become the calm inside it. Breathe deeply and remind yourself that this, too, is part of your evolution. The fire that seems to be destroying you is the same fire that is purifying you. You are not losing yourself, you are shedding what was never truly you. Stand still in the storm, and you'll realize that collapse is not your end. It's your initiation into a stronger, wiser version of yourself, the one that doesn't need saving anymore. 2. Build a fortress of emotional neutrality. Emotions are powerful servants but dangerous masters. Most people live as hostages to their emotions, easily provoked, constantly reactive, and forever trapped in cycles of anger, sadness, or fear. The Stoics understood that to rebuild yourself, you must first master your internal world. Building emotional neutrality doesn't mean becoming cold or detached. It means regaining control. It means no longer allowing the outside world to dictate your inner peace. Imagine your mind as a fortress, strong, calm, and guarded by awareness. Inside this fortress, every emotion must be examined before it enters. When someone insults you, pause before reacting. When life disappoints you, breathe before deciding what it means. You become untouchable not by avoiding emotions, but by understanding them. The old you reacted without thinking, an emotional puppet pulled by circumstance. A single insult could ruin your day. A small failure could crush your motivation. The new you responds with purpose. You observe emotions as they arise, identify them, and let them pass like clouds drifting across the sky. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Emotional neutrality is that realization in action. It's choosing to remain calm when others are consumed by chaos. It's finding stillness when everything around you screams for reaction. Every time you hold back an angry response, you grow stronger. Every time you face disappointment without collapsing, your inner walls thicken. Over time, this calm becomes your natural state, unshaken by praise, untouched by insult. The Stoics aimed for what they called apatheia, not apathy, but clarity. It's the ability to feel emotions deeply, yet remain free from their control. Like a warrior who doesn't flinch in battle, you learn to stand still in emotional storms. To build this fortress, start small. When something annoys you, delay your response by a few seconds. When you feel hurt, ask, will this matter tomorrow, next week, next year? Each moment of restraint is a brick in your fortress. Soon, you'll notice that the things that once triggered you no longer have power. You'll walk through the same chaos others do, but you'll remain centered not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. Emotional neutrality is the foundation of the new you. It's where discipline meets peace. Once your emotions serve you instead of enslaving you, no one and nothing can destroy you again. 3. Burn the illusion of support. One of the hardest truths you will ever face is this: no one is coming to save you. The people you expect to help you will often vanish when you need them most. The friends who promised loyalty will grow silent. The world will not pause to offer you sympathy. At first, this feels cruel, unfair, even. But from the Stoic perspective, it is one of life's greatest blessings. Because only when you stop expecting others to carry you, do you finally learn how to walk on your own. The old you built confidence on the shaky foundation of approval. The new, you must learn to stand alone, self-reliant, and inwardly anchored. The illusion of support is seductive. We grow up believing that someone, a friend, a family member, a mentor, will appear at the right time to push us forward. But Stoicism teaches that the path to greatness is a solitary road. Even the most virtuous emperors, philosophers, and warriors walked it largely alone. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet he wrote his deepest reflections not to others, but to himself in silence, on the battlefield of his own mind. He didn't wait for motivation. He didn't rely on applause. His strength came from within, from the acceptance that self-belief must replace dependence. When you stop waiting for others to believe in you, an incredible shift happens. You stop performing for validation and start working for transformation. Every doubt you face becomes fuel. Every rejection becomes a mirror reflecting what still needs strengthening. You begin to realize that loneliness isn't a curse, it's a teacher. In solitude, the mind sharpens, the voice of others fades, and the voice of your soul grows loud. What was once unbearable silence turns into a sanctuary where you rebuild your spirit brick by brick. The Stoics saw isolation as a sacred trial, not a punishment. They believed solitude is where the soul grows into its true size. Epictetus taught, "No man is free who is not master of himself." To master yourself, you must first stop leaning on others. You learn to become your own guide, your own comfort, your own motivator. When life gets heavy and no one reaches out, you realize that's your moment to rise. Every person who abandoned you has unknowingly given you the opportunity to become unbreakable. Think about this. The strongest trees don't grow in gardens, they grow in storms. They don't have anyone to protect them from the wind. They learn to bend without breaking. That's what you're doing. The absence of support is not the end of you, it's the forging of you. Each time you survive another disappointment, your emotional muscles grow. Each time you rebuild without help, your spirit becomes harder to destroy. You are not weak because you stand alone. You are powerful because you've learned to depend on your own strength. So, burn the illusion of support. Stop seeking people who will hold your hand through every storm. That's not love, that's dependency. True love, true friendship, will meet you when you no longer need it to survive. Until then, let solitude refine you. Let doubt purify you. Let silence become your mentor. Because once you've rebuilt yourself alone, once you've faced the darkness with no hand to hold, you'll realize you never needed anyone to believe in you. You only needed to start believing in yourself. When you walk this path, people might call you distant or cold. Let them. They don't understand that solitude is not loneliness, it's power unshared. The person who stands alone is no longer searching for external support. They are their own support system. That is where rebirth happens, when your inner strength replaces the need for outer approval. When the world goes quiet, remember this, that silence is not empty, it's full of answers. 4. Practice the art of silent becoming. Transformation loses its power when it seeks attention. The reason most people never truly change is because they talk too much about changing. They announce their goals, brag about their progress, and seek validation for every small effort. But the Stoics understood that real growth happens in silence, away from eyes, away from noise. When you're truly rebuilding yourself, you don't need to prove anything, you just need to become. The old you wanted recognition, the new you only wants evolution. Every seed that grows into a mighty tree does its work underground, unseen and unheard. Every caterpillar transforms in darkness, hidden from the world. Nature itself teaches us that real becoming is a quiet process. The Stoics believed that greatness is built in private long before it's revealed in public. They didn't chase attention, they chased mastery. They knew that the moment you start performing your progress for others, you stop progressing for yourself. When you practice the art of silent becoming, you stop explaining yourself. You stop defending your dreams to those who cannot see them. You stop giving speeches about what you will do, and instead, you start doing it. You begin to live like a sculptor who shapes stone in solitude, only revealing the finished statue when the time is right. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Don't tell people you're changing, show them through your actions, your calm, your results. Silence protects your energy. When you speak too soon, you invite resistance, judgment, and unnecessary interference. The world often destroys what it doesn't understand. Your silence keeps your rebirth safe from premature opinions. When you stop seeking validation, you start hearing your own voice again. That inner voice, steady, calm, and honest, becomes your compass. It guides you more accurately than the noise of others ever could. In the early stages of rebuilding, your progress will be fragile. Doubt will whisper, fear will tempt, and old habits will call your name. This is when silence becomes your shield. You'll wake up early while others sleep. You'll train when no one is watching. You'll study, plan, and fail quietly. And each time you rise again, you'll add another invisible layer of strength to your character. By the time the world finally notices you, you won't just look different, you'll be different. The Stoics lived by the idea that virtue and excellence are not loud. They don't need applause. They exist for their own sake. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." To practice silent becoming means to embody your transformation without words. Let your calm speak for your peace. Let your focus speak for your discipline. Let your consistency speak for your strength. One day, those who doubted you will notice something they can't explain. They'll see that you've changed not because you told them, but because you radiate differently. That's the power of quiet transformation. You didn't shout about your progress. You became your progress. You didn't fight for attention. You became undeniable. So stop announcing your journey. Protect it. Silence is not emptiness, it's incubation. It's where ideas mature, habits strengthen, and the new you takes shape. While others talk, keep building. While they seek validation, seek mastery. And when you finally emerge, you won't have to convince anyone that you've changed. Your presence will do it for you. Cinque. Convert pain into data. Pain is the most misunderstood messenger in life. Most people treat it like an enemy, something to escape, suppress, or drown in distractions. But the Stoics saw pain as the universe's purest form of communication. It doesn't come to destroy you, it comes to teach you. Every heartbreak, every disappointment, every failure, it carries information about who you are and what still needs to evolve within you. When you stop running from pain and start studying it, your entire life begins to change. Pain becomes data, emotional data, spiritual data, human data showing you where you're still chained, where you still depend on illusions, and where you still need to grow stronger. The old you saw pain as punishment. The new you must see it as feedback. Epictetus, who was once a slave, said, "Difficulties show what men are. Every challenge is a mirror reflecting the truth of your strength. When life breaks you, don't cry over the cracks, look through them. Pain exposes everything you've been hiding from yourself. It shows you which beliefs are outdated, which fears are still alive, which attachments are unhealthy." The Stoics didn't avoid discomfort because they knew that avoiding pain means avoiding growth. If you never face what hurts you, you never understand what controls you. When something painful happens, don't just feel it, observe it. Step outside yourself and ask questions like, what is this teaching me about my expectations? What truth is hidden behind this discomfort? What is the universe trying to redirect me toward? This is how Stoics turned suffering into wisdom. Instead of saying, "Why is this happening to me?" they asked, "How can this make me stronger?" That single change in perspective separates the broken from the reborn. Think about how much of your pain comes from resistance, not reality. Losing someone hurts, but clinging to them after they're gone hurts even more. Failing at something hurts, but attaching your identity to success hurts longer. The Stoic learns to sit with pain until its message becomes clear. The more you resist, the louder it screams. But once you listen, it quiets down because pain only exists to deliver its lesson. Once the lesson is received, the pain no longer needs to stay. Let's imagine pain as a signal, like the body's way of saying something's off. If your hand burns when touching fire, that pain isn't cruel, it's protective. Emotional pain works the same way. It warns you when your boundaries are crossed, when your purpose is forgotten, or when your actions go against your deeper values. Instead of numbing yourself, use that pain as a compass. Ask, what is this feeling pointing toward? Often, it points you straight to what you need to heal or release. Marcus Aurelius practiced this kind of reflection daily. When he faced betrayal, illness, or exhaustion, he didn't indulge in self-pity. He saw pain as material for philosophy, something to analyze and transform. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That means your pain is not a wall, it's a door. You just need to stop staring at it and start walking through it. The emotions that hurt you most are your greatest opportunities to awaken. If someone breaks your heart, the data is clear. You gave too much of your peace to someone who didn't earn it. If you lose motivation, the data says your purpose wasn't rooted deep enough. If failure devastates you, it means your self-worth is still attached to outcomes. This is how you turn pain into data, by decoding its message instead of avoiding it. The Stoics knew that every emotion, no matter how dark, has a logic hidden inside it. Anger shows where your boundaries lie. Sadness shows what you value deeply. Fear shows where you still lack trust. Instead of drowning in these emotions, extract their wisdom. Modern people try to heal by avoiding pain, endless scrolling, fake positivity, temporary pleasures. But the Stoic heals by going through pain, not around it. Sit quietly with it, write about it. Study its patterns. If the same kind of pain keeps returning, it's a sign that the same lesson remains unlearned. Once you face it honestly, you'll notice it fades faster each time. The pain you once ran from becomes your guide. Eventually, you'll reach a level where pain no longer terrifies you. You'll welcome it like an old teacher visiting again, strict, yes, but fair. You'll start saying, "Ah, here you are again. What are you showing me this time?" That's when you become unstoppable, because nothing can break a person who treats pain as wisdom. Every loss, every betrayal, every rejection becomes a stepping stone. You begin to evolve so fast that pain can't keep up with you anymore. Remember this truth. Pain doesn't leave until it teaches you what you needed to learn. The quicker you listen, the sooner you heal. So the next time your heart aches, your plans fail, or your soul feels heavy, don't drown it out. Sit down with your pain and ask it questions. Turn it into knowledge. Use it as fuel. Because once you've learned to extract meaning from pain, you'll never fear it again. And the moment you stop fearing pain, that's the moment you become free. 6. Create a personal code and obey it like law. There comes a time when motivation fades, when inspiration dries up, and when discipline is the only thing keeping you alive. That's the moment the Stoic path begins, the moment you stop waiting to feel ready and start living by a code. A code is more than a list of rules. It is a declaration of who you are, even when no one is watching. It is the invisible backbone that holds you upright when the world tries to bend you. The old you was guided by moods. The new you must be guided by principles. The Stoics lived by inner laws, not by impulses. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, but he was first and foremost a ruler of himself. Every morning, he would remind himself what kind of man he intended to be: calm in anger, just in chaos, disciplined in temptation. Epictetus, born a slave, lived by an unbreakable internal standard long before he was physically free. He understood that no external freedom matters if you are still enslaved to your emotions and impulses. This is what your personal code does. It frees you from chaos by giving your life structure and direction. Ask yourself, what do I stand for when no one is watching? What promises will I never break, even when breaking them would be easier? That's where your code begins. It might be simple. I will speak truth, even when it costs me. I will not complain about what I can change. I will not chase validation. I will not allow anger to dictate my actions. I will rise early, train my body, sharpen my mind, and control my tongue. These are not grand gestures. They are daily vows, and once spoken, they become the foundation of your rebirth. The reason most people never evolve is because they make goals, not codes. Goals depend on success. Codes depend on integrity. Goals fall apart when circumstances change. Codes remain unshaken because they are based on who you choose to be, not on what you hope to get. When you create a personal code and obey it like law, you eliminate half the confusion of life. Decisions become simple. If it aligns with your code, do it. If it doesn't, walk away. No overthinking, no guilt. The new you doesn't need approval. The new you needs alignment. Living by a personal code also builds self-respect, the rarest form of confidence. When you know that you can trust yourself, you no longer crave trust from others. You stop seeking external validation because your own consistency becomes your validation. Each time you keep a promise to yourself, waking up early, staying calm under pressure, controlling your desires, your self-respect grows stronger. And with every small act of discipline, you replace weakness with inner authority. You stop being a prisoner of feelings and become a commander of actions. The Stoics believed that peace is not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of order. Your code brings that order. When your mind is tempted by laziness, your code speaks. No. When anger knocks on your door, your code says, stay still. When fear whispers, you can't, your code answers, do it anyway. Over time, this voice becomes louder than your emotions. It becomes your compass in every storm. You stop negotiating with weakness because your code has already decided how you respond to it. But a code only has power if it's enforced. A law unenforced is just a wish. The Stoics understood this deeply. They treated self-discipline like a sacred ritual. Every night, they reviewed their day. Where did I break my code? Where did I stay true? They didn't judge themselves harshly, they simply recalibrated. That is how you build integrity, not through perfection, but through relentless correction. If you fall, rise again. If you slip, strengthen your grip. A broken rule doesn't make you weak. Refusing to rebuild does. To live by a code is to live with dignity. You begin to feel a quiet power, not arrogance, but certainty. You know who you are. You know what you tolerate. You know what cannot tempt you anymore. The old you chased everything that glittered. The new you follows what's right. The old you bent under pressure. The new you stands firm because your foundation isn't built on emotion, but on principle. And something remarkable happens. People start to feel your presence differently. They notice your calm when others panic, your consistency when others falter, your silence when others gossip. You won't need to tell anyone you've changed, they'll sense it. That's the power of living by a code. You no longer need to control others because you've mastered the only thing that ever truly mattered, yourself. Remember this truth. Without a code, life feels chaotic. With a code, even chaos becomes manageable. Your code doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be yours. Write it, live it, protect it. Every day you obey it, you destroy a piece of the old you and replace it with strength, clarity, and peace. The Stoics weren't born disciplined, they became disciplined by choice, one principle at a time. So decide right now, who will you be when no one is watching? What standard will you live by when no one applauds you for it? Because once you answer that, once you craft your personal law and live under it faithfully, you'll no longer need to seek control over the world. You'll have mastered the hardest empire to rule, the one inside yourself. 7. Rebuild in the dark, reveal in the light. The most powerful transformations do not happen under the spotlight, they happen in the shadows. The world glorifies public success, but it forgets the sacredness of private struggle. The Stoics understood that everything meaningful in life is forged away from attention in silence, in darkness, in the long unseen hours where no one is clapping for you. To rebuild yourself when no one believes in you, you must first learn to embrace that darkness, not as a punishment, but as a sanctuary. Because the truth is, all great rebirths begin in obscurity. When you've been broken, when life has stripped away your certainty and comfort, your first instinct might be to rush back into the light, to prove your worth, to show you're fine, and to convince others that you're still strong. But that's the voice of ego, not wisdom. The Stoics would tell you, don't rush your becoming. The darkness isn't your enemy, it's your training ground. It's where your new self is built slowly, quietly, piece by piece. When the world can't see you, you're free from judgment, free from expectation, free from the noise that keeps you from hearing your own thoughts. In that solitude, you meet yourself honestly, no masks, no filters, no performance. Epictetus said, "No great thing is created suddenly." The same applies to you. You cannot rebuild in a day what took years to break. Darkness gives you the space to deconstruct yourself safely. It gives you time to understand your flaws without shame and to craft your strength without applause. This is why the Stoics cherished solitude, not because they hated people, but because they knew self-mastery requires withdrawal. The world cannot guide you toward your higher self, because the world profits from your distraction. Only silence can guide you back home. Rebuilding in the dark means learning to work without validation. It means getting up early to train when no one notices, studying when no one's cheering, healing your heart when no one's checking in. It's rewriting your story in the quiet, line by line, without broadcasting every step. And though it may feel lonely, that loneliness is sacred. It's where real strength is born. You start realizing that your value was never tied to attention. You stop needing the world's permission to evolve. And once you no longer need to be seen, you start becoming someone worth seeing. The old you lived loudly because it was insecure, constantly proving, constantly performing. But real growth doesn't make noise. It moves silently, like the tide reshaping the shore. You become more deliberate with your actions, more careful with your energy, more patient with your progress. You stop trying to convince people of your worth, and instead, you build it. You no longer post your progress to gain validation. You do the work quietly until your results speak so loudly that silence itself becomes your proof. Think of every master, every philosopher, every artist who achieved greatness. They all had a dark period, a season of isolation where the world forgot them. Marcus Aurelius wrote meditations in the quiet of his tent, surrounded by war. Seneca wrote letters in exile, stripped of power and wealth. Even the mightiest trees grow roots deep in the soil, unseen. Darkness doesn't destroy potential, it protects it. It allows your new identity to take shape before it's strong enough to face the world's winds again. Rebuilding in the dark is not about hiding forever, it's about rebuilding properly. When you emerge too soon, half-healed, half-disciplined, half-ready, the world will break you again. But when you stay patient, when you give your transformation time to mature, you walk back into the light as something entirely different. People who once dismissed you will look twice, wondering how you became so calm, so certain, so unbothered. They won't realize that your silence was not weakness, it was strategy. The Stoics taught that the world is not your audience, your conscience is. You don't rebuild for applause, you rebuild for alignment. The person who rebuilds in darkness becomes someone who no longer depends on others for purpose. Your joy no longer hinges on attention. Your peace no longer depends on approval. You start to understand that the most important work is the work that happens when nobody is watching. And when the time finally comes to reveal your new self, you won't need to announce it. Your energy will announce it for you. Your eyes will reflect it. Your silence will carry authority. You'll move differently, grounded, focused, resilient. That's the reward of rebuilding alone. No one can take credit for your transformation because they were never there to witness it. The next time you feel invisible, remember, invisibility is not failure, it's incubation. The world may have turned its back, but that's exactly how the universe creates space for your rebirth. Let the darkness rebuild you in peace. Let it strip away the old habits, the loud insecurities, the fragile need for validation. The light will come again, and when it does, you'll walk into it not as who you were, but as who you were always meant to become. When no one believes in you, rebuild anyway. When no one sees your effort, persist anyway. When no one claps, create your own rhythm. Because the greatest proof of transformation isn't in being seen, it's in becoming so unshakable that even the silence respects you. And when you finally rise from the dark, you'll realize the light was inside you all along. 8. Turn rejection into raw power. Rejection is one of life's most misunderstood gifts. To the old you, it felt like failure, like proof that you weren't good enough, ready enough, or deserving enough. But to the Stoics, rejection was never personal. It was directional. It was the universe's way of saying, not this path, not this person, not yet. Every time someone walked away, every time a door slammed shut, every time you were overlooked or underestimated, something vital was being revealed. The path of your old self was reaching its limit. You were being redirected toward something greater, something that couldn't exist as long as you kept begging for acceptance from places that were never meant for you. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is the Stoic secret. Rejection doesn't block you, it builds you. Every no you hear is carving you into someone who no longer depends on permission. The new you doesn't chase opportunities, you create them. You don't seek belonging, you build it within. Rejection only hurts when your sense of worth is external. But once you rebuild your self-worth internally, rejection becomes fuel. It transforms from a wound into wisdom, from pain into propulsion. Think back to the times you were rejected by people you loved, by opportunities you wanted, by the world itself. Each time, you thought your story was ending. But look closely. Didn't every rejection eventually push you somewhere better? That friend who left taught you independence. That job you didn't get forced you to develop new skills. That heartbreak shattered your illusions about love, but rebuilt your respect for self. You see, rejection doesn't destroy you. It refines you. It burns away every illusion that made you fragile, leaving behind only truth, the kind of truth that can't be broken again. The Stoics never wasted time mourning what wasn't meant for them. They understood that everything denied is a lesson disguised as loss. Seneca wrote, "What need is there to weep over parts of life? The whole of it calls for tears." In other words, suffering is inevitable, but how you interpret it defines your strength. When you face rejection, don't see it as the universe turning its back on you. See it as the universe turning you toward yourself. It's forcing you to build a foundation that no one can pull out from under you again. Most people collapse under rejection because they built their identity on being chosen. They believed that someone else's approval validated their worth. But the Stoic understands, no external hand can crown you. The only real validation is self-respect. You must become so aligned with your principles that rejection no longer threatens you. It frees you. It removes everything false, everything shallow, everything dependent on others. It strips you down until you're left with something pure conviction. Rejection is also your greatest teacher in emotional control. The old you reacted with anger, sadness, and self-doubt. The new you observes. You pause, analyze, and adapt. You don't ask, "Why me?" You ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" Maybe it's showing you that you've outgrown certain people. Maybe it's revealing that your skills need sharpening. Or maybe it's testing how much faith you really have in your own path. Once you shift from reaction to reflection, rejection loses its sting. It becomes a map instead of a wound. Every no in your life is secretly a form of training. It's preparing you to move without applause, to build without help, to trust without guarantees. That's what Stoicism is, the art of turning adversity into advancement. When someone doubts you, use that doubt as proof that you're walking where others fear to tread. When people overlook you, remember, invisibility is power. You're becoming dangerous in silence while they remain loud in mediocrity. And when those same people finally see you succeed, it won't be out of revenge. It'll be because you grew so much that their opinion no longer matters. You must learn to absorb rejection like a warrior absorbs blows, not by avoiding them, but by converting them into strength. Every rejection should harden your purpose, sharpen your focus, and purify your intentions. If you're constantly seeking approval, you will live as a slave to circumstance. But if you can stand tall in rejection, you will live as a master of your destiny. The Stoics faced exile, betrayal, and loss, yet they stood calm, anchored in purpose, because they knew you cannot be truly rejected if you never outsource your value. Let the doors close. Let people walk away. Let the silence surround you. Each ending is not a punishment, but a refinement. You are being shaped into something precise, resilient, and unstoppable. Rejection burns, yes, but what it burns away is weakness. What remains is truth, integrity, and power. So the next time someone says no, don't shrink, straighten your spine. Don't chase after them, walk forward in silence. The people who reject you now are unknowingly clearing your path for something greater. And when that greater thing arrives, you'll be grateful that you weren't accepted too soon. The Stoic doesn't curse rejection. He bows to it, learns from it, and lets it polish him. You are not defined by who accepts you. You are defined by what you become after being denied. Every time you face rejection, remind yourself, this is not a wall, it's a weapon. It's shaping you into someone who no longer needs permission to exist. In the end, rejection is not your enemy. It's your proof that you're evolving. The door that closes behind you is forcing you to build a gate of your own. And when you walk through it, you won't be the same person who once waited to be chosen. You'll be the one doing the choosing, calm, centered, and completely free. 9. Detach from the noise and return to stillness. The modern world is addicted to noise, not just the sound of traffic, notifications, or endless chatter, but mental noise. Opinions, judgments, expectations, comparisons, and fears that never stop echoing in your mind. The old you was trapped in this noise. You constantly checked what others thought of you, chased their approval, and measured your worth by their reactions. You were pulled in every direction, exhausted by external chaos and internal conflict. But if you truly want to destroy the old you and rebuild yourself into someone unshakable, you must learn one of the most powerful Stoic practices, the art of detachment and stillness. The Stoics believed that peace is not something you find, it's something you create by letting go of what doesn't matter. They lived in empires filled with war, politics, and corruption, yet they cultivated serenity within their own minds. Marcus Aurelius ruled the largest empire in the world, yet every night he retreated into silence to remind himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This is the essence of stillness. The world will always make noise, but you decide whether you listen or stay centered. To detach from the noise, you must first recognize how much it controls you. Every time you argue with strangers online, worry about opinions, or obsess over outcomes, you're feeding chaos. The old you thought constant engagement was strength. The new you understands that restraint is mastery. A wise person doesn't react to everything. They observe, evaluate, and choose when to act. They know that not every battle deserves attention, not every thought deserves belief, and not every feeling deserves expression. This self-command is the foundation of peace. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. You stop giving your energy to things beyond your control. The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control, the ability to separate what's within your influence from what isn't. You cannot control the past, the opinions of others, or the twists of fate. But you can control your attitude, your actions, and your responses. The old you wasted energy trying to manipulate life. The new you redirects that energy toward mastering yourself. When you finally understand this, the noise of the world begins to fade, and your inner voice becomes audible again. Stillness isn't just sitting in silence. It's the ability to be undisturbed while surrounded by storms. It's walking through chaos without letting it enter you. When people insult you, you don't respond not because you're weak, but because you refuse to hand them your peace. When life throws delays or disappointments your way, you don't panic, you adapt. You move like water, calm, patient, unstoppable. Marcus Aurelius said, "Be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over. It stands unmoved, and the raging of the sea falls still around it." That's what stillness feels like. The reason this lesson is so vital in rebuilding yourself is because noise is what keeps you trapped in your old identity. Every time you react impulsively, you reinforce who you used to be. Every time you chase external validation, you bury your true self deeper. To detach from the noise, you must intentionally withdraw, not out of weakness, but out of strategy. Take time every day to sit in solitude, even for a few minutes. Turn off the screens, turn away from distractions. Ask yourself, what really matters right now? You'll notice that most of what you worried about was irrelevant. When you begin to live this way, people will misunderstand you. They'll say you've changed, and they'll be right. You'll no longer feel the need to argue, to prove, or to explain. The new you is too focused on peace to chase approval. You'll start choosing silence over gossip, patience over reaction, and calm over control. This quiet power will confuse those who still live in noise because they cannot imagine strength that doesn't shout. But that's exactly what Stoic strength is: silent resilience. Detachment also brings emotional clarity. When you stop reacting instantly, you begin to see things as they truly are. The insults that once hurt you reveal themselves as projections of others' pain. The opportunities you thought you missed show up later in better form. The people who left your life make sense in hindsight. Stillness gives you perspective, the space to understand before you decide. The old you acted fast and regretted later. The new you observes first and acts with precision. This discipline of stillness is not built in a day. It's a lifelong practice. Every morning, remind yourself, today, I will not be a slave to noise. When you feel tempted to react, pause. When you feel the urge to prove something, breathe. When you feel overwhelmed, retreat inward for a moment of awareness. That pause, that 1 second of silence, is where the old you dies and the new you begins. The Stoics meditated not to escape the world, but to dominate their reactions to it. They believed that a still mind is an invincible fortress. No attack, no insult, no tragedy can truly shake it. Once you cultivate that state of mind, life stops controlling you. You start moving through the world with quiet power. You no longer drown in every wave, you ride them with grace. So, detach from the noise. Step out of the endless race of proving, comparing, and defending. The world is loud because most people fear silence. They fear meeting themselves without distraction. But that silence is where your true strength hides. That's where you rebuild your soul, your discipline, your direction. When you return to stillness, you realize that everything you were chasing was already inside you. Peace was never missing. It was simply buried beneath noise. The new you doesn't shout for attention. You radiate calm confidence that speaks louder than words. You become the person others look to for steadiness when the world trembles. And that's when you understand the deepest Stoic truth. The quieter you become, the stronger you get. Detach, withdraw, breathe. The world may still roar around you, but inside there will be only peace. That is when you have truly rebuilt yourself. 10. Die before you die, the final rebirth of the self. To truly destroy the old you, you must first face the deepest illusion of all the illusion, that you have infinite time. Most people live as if life will wait for them. They postpone change, numb discomfort, and protect their habits with excuses. They tell themselves, "I'll start tomorrow." But Stoicism has no patience for tomorrow. The Stoics meditated on death not to be morbid, but to wake up to life. They called it memento mori, remember that you must die, because when you remember death, everything false inside you begins to burn away. Fear shrinks, ego dissolves, procrastination loses its grip, and what remains is pure presence, the awareness that every moment counts. Marcus Aurelius, who could command armies, still wrote in his journal each day, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." He knew that death is not the end, it's the mirror that reveals what truly matters. The old you avoided this truth. You lived cautiously, guarded by comfort, afraid to lose. But when you contemplate mortality, you realize you have nothing to lose because everything you cling to is already temporary. That realization is liberation. To die before you die means to let go of all that isn't essential, the ego, the bitterness, the grudges, the need to be liked, the fear of failing, and live with a clarity that only death can teach. The Stoics saw death as a teacher, not an enemy. They asked, "If this were my last day, would I be proud of how I'm spending it?" Most people never ask that question because it terrifies them, but the one who faces it becomes unstoppable. When you realize time is finite, you stop wasting it on meaningless distractions. You stop overthinking. You stop delaying your dreams. You start saying what needs to be said, doing what must be done, and living with intensity, honesty, and focus. Death awareness cuts through illusion like a blade. It reminds you that someday is not real, there is only now. To die before you die also means killing the identities that no longer fit you. The old you was built from survival, shaped by fear, validation, and the expectations of others. That version must die if you wish to live freely. Seneca said, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." You cannot become your highest self while clinging to the safety of your old life. You must burn your bridges, not to prove anything, but to remove the path back to mediocrity. Destroy your need for approval, end your addiction to comfort, kill the identity that relies on being understood. That death is not loss, it is rebirth. The moment you let the old self die, you begin to experience a strange kind of peace. You stop chasing validation because the one who needed it no longer exists. You stop fearing failure because you've already buried the version of you that could be humiliated. You stop being desperate for belonging because your worth no longer depends on the world. Death, symbolic death, frees you from the prison of pretending. You finally become authentic, not because you're trying to be, but because everything false has been burned away. Think of this like a controlled fire. A forest sometimes needs to burn to renew its soil, to allow new life to grow. In the same way, you must allow parts of yourself to burn, your insecurities, your false identities, your outdated beliefs. When you surrender them, you create space for new strength, new clarity, new purpose. But that process is painful. It will feel like you're losing everything. The Stoics would tell you, you're not losing, you're returning. You're returning to simplicity, to authenticity, to the raw essence of who you were before fear took over. Every day, practice this small death. When you wake up, remind yourself that today might be your last, not to breed fear, but urgency. When you go to bed, reflect as if you won't wake again, not to breed sorrow, but gratitude. This ritual transforms how you see time. You begin to notice beauty in ordinary moments, the sunlight through the window, the silence before sleep, the chance to breathe, to move, to think. That's the gift death awareness gives. It amplifies life. The old you was obsessed with becoming someone. The new you focuses on being someone here, now, fully. You stop running from discomfort and start meeting it face to face. You realize that true strength is not in avoiding pain, but in accepting it without fear. The Stoics were warriors of the mind because they faced mortality every day. They knew that a person who fears death can never live freely, but the one who accepts it, who dies before dying, becomes untouchable. When you no longer fear endings, beginnings become effortless. You stop holding back in love because you know time is short. You stop wasting days in resentment because you see how absurd it is to carry anger when tomorrow isn't promised. You stop doubting your worth because you finally understand everything that exists right now, including you, is temporary and miraculous. That realization fills your days with intensity, not anxiety. You start living with purpose, not panic. This is the ultimate Stoic rebirth: to die before you die and awaken as someone who no longer fears the storms of life. You become the kind of person who walks calmly through chaos because you've already buried your fears. You speak truthfully, live deliberately, and love fearlessly. And when death eventually comes, as it will for us all, you won't tremble. You'll greet it like an old friend, because you've been practicing this moment your entire life. So let the old you die not once, but daily. Let every day burn away your fear, your laziness, your ego, your hesitation, and from those ashes, let a new you rise sharper, freer, more alive. Remember, you are not here to live forever. You are here to live fully. The Stoics didn't seek immortality, they sought immensity. To live in such a way that every breath mattered, every moment was honored, and every day was enough. Destroy the illusion of time, face the truth of death, and you'll finally start living not as who you were, but as who you were always meant to be. There comes a moment in every life when the old version of you simply cannot continue. You feel it, a quiet exhaustion with pretending, chasing, pleasing, and waiting for permission. That's not failure, that's awakening. The collapse, the loneliness, the silence, the rejection, the pain, they were never punishments, they were initiations. The universe was never trying to destroy you, it was trying to strip you down to your essence, to burn away everything temporary so that only truth could remain. What you thought was the end of you was actually the beginning of your real life. Stoicism teaches that every obstacle contains its own medicine, every loss hides a gift, and every storm reveals a deeper stillness. When you destroy the old you, you are not losing yourself. You are reclaiming yourself from fear, from noise, from dependence, from illusion. You are returning to what is pure, disciplined, and untouchable within. The old you was built from reactions. The new you is built from principles. The old you wanted to be seen. The new you wants to see clearly. The old you depended on others. The new you depends only on your own strength and peace. Rebuilding yourself when no one believes in you is the ultimate act of self-respect. You are proving to the universe that your existence doesn't require validation, only vision. You've learned to be calm when others panic, to observe when others react, to grow when others complain. You've learned that solitude is sacred, that pain is information, that silence is power, and that every ending is a new doorway disguised as despair. Now you understand what the Stoics meant by mastery of the self. It's not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming peaceful in imperfection. It's not about being fearless. It's about moving forward even with fear in your pocket. You don't need the world's belief to build your empire, only your discipline, your stillness, and your code. You've burned through everything false, and now what's left is pure will, quiet, steady, and indestructible. So when the world doubts you, smile. When life collapses again, breathe. When pain returns, listen. You have walked through fire and learned to make it light your path. The new you doesn't need revenge, recognition, or reassurance. You've seen too much, felt too much, and learned too much to ever go back. You are now the living proof that strength isn't something you find, it's something you build in the dark. Walk forward with calm certainty. Carry your silence like armor. Let your discipline speak for you. The world may never know what it took to rebuild yourself, and it doesn't have to, because you do. You survived the collapse, you rose from the ashes, and now you are everything the old you was never strong enough to become. You have destroyed the old you, and in that destruction you have found freedom.